Today, April 22nd, marks 8 years since the murder of the Roden family in Pike County, Ohio. This is the Facebook status that I posted 8 years ago when I lived in the area, just a couple of roads away from where this massacre took place. You can pause to read, but this pretty accurately reflects the level of I don't know what's going on and panic that we had. If this isn't a story you're familiar with, I cover it pretty in depth on my page. There is a playlist. I think there's 4 parts to it because we covered the trial day by day. But these were the 8 victims. These victims were all members of the Roden family, with the exception of Hannah Gilley, who was the fiance of a member of the family. On April 22nd, 2016, members of the Wagner family broke into multiple residences in the middle of the night of the Roden family in Pike County, Ohio. Murdered that night were Dana Roden, Chris Roden, Frankie Roden, Hannah Hazel Gilley, his fiance, Hannah Roden, Chris Roden, Chris Jr., Kenneth Roden, and Gary Roden. Kenneth Roden was an uncle, and Gary Roden was a cousin. Dana and Chris were divorced, but they are the parents of Frankie, Hannah, and Chris Jr., and they were on great terms, and they were friends. It would take 2 years until November of 2018 to arrest 4 members of the Wagner family: Father Billy Wagner, Mother Angela Wagner, and their 2 sons, George Wagner IV and Edward Jake Wagner. Also arrested this time was Angela's mother, Rita Newcomb, and George's mother, Frederica Wagner. Rita Newcomb, Angela's mother, was arrested and charged with perjury, I think, and forging documentation for forging custody papers for Jake and his baby's mother. I'm doing this off the top of my head, so, you'd think I'd know this case inside and out by now, but I don't. George's mother, Frederica, her charges were dismissed without prejudice, I think is what it's called, when they can press them against you again. I don't think she's done yet. I think they're going to ultimately press charges against her once Billy's trial's over. On the 5-year anniversary of the crime, Jake Wagner in prison decided he was going to flip. He talked and he confessed to the murder. Jake was tied into the Roden family via Hannah Roden, who he had a 3-year-old daughter with. Allegedly, and from what they have said in court, so I don't know if it's alleged anymore, this entire murder was over the custody of the 3-year-old that these two shared. Never mind the fact that Jake was a whole ass adult when he met 14-year-old Hannah, and this is her senior prom, and he's like, 22 or something. I don't know, again, going off the top of my head, but he was a whole ass adult when he met her when she was a young teenager. Sadly, because of those circumstances and because of a lot of bad blood between these families, this entire family was massacred that day, while these two had their 2 children in the home and were covered in their parents' blood, and Hannah Mae Roden had just had a baby 4 days prior. Frankie and Hannah Hazel's 2 children, they had a 2 or 3-year-old that was roaming around covered in their blood, and a 6-month-old that was laying in bed between them. Hannah Mae Roden had her 3-year-old daughter with Jake, who was with the Wagners the night that this happened, and her 4-day-old baby Kylie, the father of which there was apparently not a debate to her, but there was among some other people whether the baby was Jake's, but the baby actually belongs to Hannah Hazel's brother, Charlie. Listen, this is small town shit, okay? If you're from a city, this is just what we do. There's not a lot of people here, okay? Some justice was finally served, with Jake and his mother Angela pleading guilty and testifying against their other co-conspirator, George Wagner IV, Jake's brother, Angela's oldest son. He was convicted in 2022. The father, Billy, is set to go to trial sometime this year. I'm not exactly sure when that is going to start. If you're interested in this story and learning more, like I said, there's several playlists here. On my TikTok, I was local. I am still semi-local, but I was very local to this at the time. We go on several little side streets, and also I'm unmedicated for ADHD, so sorry. Just be glad I didn't have 10-minute videos then. Just be glad. There are several podcasts about this. The Pink Moon Murders is very good, and then there is the Piketon Massacre podcast that's done by iHeartRadio. And then they also, I believe, were involved in the documentary that is currently on Peacock. It is called The Road Massacre, I think. It's very good. Limited series. I think there's like 2-3 episodes. It does a really good job as well. I hope with some justice served and hopefully all of the justice being dished out later this year, I hope that the Rodens and Hannah Hazel Gilly can rest in peace, knowing that their story is being told, justice is being brought around, and that they have not been forgotten. I hope that wherever the children that were involved in this story are, that Frankie and Hannah Hazel's daughter, or two sons, Hannah Mae's two daughters, and there was a child involved with the older brother, George Wagner, Bullvine. We talked about him a lot. He came up several times in testimony. I do know where he is, and I do know that he is doing pretty good. Obviously don't know this child, and if I did, I wouldn't out that sort of information, but I have heard from people that do know where these children are that they are doing well. But I hope that they are doing well, and happy belated birthday to sweet baby Kylie, who would now be 8 years old, and she has lived her entire life without her mother. I hope these kids are continuing to do great and are surrounded by people who love them, who will tell them about their family in age-appropriate ways and in a helpful way whenever they have questions or have feelings. Anyway, that's all for tonight. I just didn't want today to go by without mentioning this. This was a defining moment in a lot of people's lives and in this area. I love y'all. Be kind to each other.